Imprint in the dust. The ruins always spoke, though not in voices one could trust. Dust and fractured glass remembered footsteps long gone, and sometimes the wind carried whispers that belonged to no living throat. Rylan had learned to walk with care through such places, not because he feared ghosts, but because memory itself could be a trap. The old city stretched around him, a carcass of steel ribs and shattered towers. Its spine bent toward the horizon like something that had died mid-prayer. He had not planned to return here. Once, when he was younger, this place had been his sanctuary. Now it was a hollow cathedral of silence, picked clean by scavengers and half-swallowed by sandstorms. Still, the old stories clung to the ruins. They said something had survived beneath the layers of dust, something left from the last days before the great blackout, when the world still hummed with light. Rylan adjusted the strap of his pack and pulled his hood lower against the grit-filled wind. The sky above was neither day nor night, only a perpetual dusk painted by ash drifting from faraway fires. He felt the weight of the shard tucked in his inner pocket, a curved piece of black glass no larger than a fingernail. He had found it buried in the skeleton of a train station 2 weeks ago. It pulsed faintly when he touched it, as though it held a heartbeat of its own. He hadn't shown it to anyone, not yet. The shard disturbed him. It showed images when he slept, fragments of buildings alive with neon, voices speaking in languages he did not recognize, laughter that did not belong to him. At first he thought they were dreams, echoes of his own tired mind. But the visions grew sharper, insisting they were not his at all. They were records, memories. And if that was true, then the shard was a remnant of the world's buried history. The Church of Data had long declared such relics heresy. Information older than the blackout was said to carry corruption, a poison that could unravel the fragile balance of the enclaves. Yet the corporations hunted the same relics with a hunger just as fervent, though their priests wore masks of glass instead of robes. Both sides would kill for the shard in Rylan's pocket. That was why he kept moving, from one dead district to another, following the faded pulse that seemed to guide him deeper into the city's broken heart. He stopped in what had once been a plaza. A fountain stood there, dry for decades, its cracked basin filled with sand. On its rim lay a row of broken faces, statues chipped into anonymity by time. He brushed dust from one and saw the faint outline of an eye staring back at him, eroded but not gone. For a moment he imagined the city looking at him through that single hollow socket, watching, waiting. The shard pulsed harder. Rylan dropped his hand and stepped back. His chest tightened, as though the air itself had turned heavy. The shard wanted him to move, to follow. He hated the thought, being led by an artifact that might not even be what he believed. Yet he could not deny the pull. He had wandered long enough to know instinct was never just his own anymore. Through a gap between buildings, he glimpsed a narrow street sloping downward into shadows. Its walls were tattooed with graffiti, symbols of forgotten gangs, desperate prayers, warnings etched in acid. Some of the marks were fresh. He crouched and touched one with his fingertips. The paint was sticky. Someone had been here not long ago. His throat went dry. He wasn't alone. Rylan straightened, scanning the hollow windows above. The silence seemed too deliberate, like breath held behind teeth. He adjusted the strap of his pack again and forced himself forward. If others were here, scavengers or worse, then the shard was already guiding him into danger. Perhaps that was its purpose all along. He reached the bottom of the slope and found himself before a building that leaned like a drunk against its neighbor. Its entrance was blocked by twisted metal, but a gap remained, wide enough for a body to slip through. The shard throbbed against his chest like a living heart. For a long moment he stood still, every instinct telling him to walk away, to throw the shard into the dust and let the city swallow it forever. But he couldn't. The images it had shown him clung like hooks. The neon streets, the laughter, the lives erased by the blackout. They felt too real to abandon. With a slow breath, he pushed through the gap. Inside, the air was cooler, heavy with the scent of rust and something sweeter beneath. Old electricity, the memory of circuits long dead. His footsteps stirred dust into pale ghosts that floated around him. A faint glow seeped from beneath the floor, soft as the pulse of veins. Rylan knelt. Beneath the cracked tiles he saw it. Another shard, larger, curved like a fragment of a black mirror. Its glow matched the one in his pocket. The world seemed to hold its breath. He reached out. The shard on the floor shimmered like liquid night, its surface bending the dim light into impossible shapes. Rylan's fingers hovered above it, trembling as though the thing exhaled a chill. He had seen fragments before, trinkets scavenged by smugglers and sold to desperate enclaves for bread or bullets, but never like this, never with a pulse that seemed to echo his own. The moment his skin touched it, the city collapsed around him. Not in ruins, but in light. For a heartbeat, the dust vanished, and towers of glass rose in impossible clarity. Neon rivers spilled through the streets. Voices filled the air. Laughter, argument, the chant of markets alive with color. He smelled roasted food, fuel smoke, the perfume of rain on chrome. Everything alive. Everything burning bright. He was not Rylan anymore, but a witness trapped in another's skin. He staggered back, hand tearing free from the shard. The vision snapped like glass underfoot. The room returned, ruined and silent. But the aftertaste lingered in his mouth, roasted spice, laughter echoing in his chest. He fell to his knees. His breath came ragged. The shard in his pocket beat against his ribs as though answering the one on the floor. Two fragments of the same broken whole. He whispered to no one, "How many more?" The answer came not from his thoughts, but from the shadows. A scrape of boot against stone. Ryla's spun. At the far end of the room stood a figure half hidden by debris. The light from below caught the edges of a mask, glass, fractured, faceless. The stranger didn't move. For a long moment they regarded each other in silence, as though both were ghosts trespassing in the same dream. "You touched it," the masked figure said at last. The voice was neither man nor woman, distorted by a filter that gave it the texture of broken circuits. "Then it chose you." Rylan's hand moved instinctively to his knife, though he knew steel was nothing against the corporation's reach. He spat dust. "I don't know what you think I am, but I don't want part of your games." The mask tilted. "Games? No, this is dance. You've already stepped onto the floor." The words rattled something in him. Dance. He remembered whispers from other ruins, rumors of the corporations gathering shards to stitch a memory that wasn't theirs. A great mosaic of fractured selves. People claimed it was a way to rebuild the world. Others said it was a prison of souls. Whatever the truth, none who carried shards lived long without chains. The masked figure stepped closer, slow, deliberate. Leave it, and you'll be hunted. Carry it, and you'll be hunted more. But come with me, and at least your death will matter. Rylan swallowed. He hated the taste of their certainty. The city had taken everything from him once already. He had no wish to dance on its ashes. Yet the vision burned inside him still. The living city, the neon alive again. He wanted it back, even if it was only an echo. "I walk alone," he said, though his voice betrayed a trembling. The stranger regarded him for another long silence, then gave the smallest nod, as if this answer had been expected. They withdrew into the shadows, the sound of boots fading like memory itself. Rylan remained kneeling by the second shard. He should have left, abandoned both pieces to the dust. But when his fingers reached again, he didn't resist. The shard lifted easily into his hand. For hours he wandered through the ruin, each step heavier than the last. The two shards pulsed together, their glow faint but undeniable. They wanted reunion. He thought of other fragments scattered in sand, hidden in the bones of cities. If they were pieces of the same broken mirror, what reflection waited when all were found? By dusk he reached the plaza again. The fountain loomed, filled with shadows that moved like water, though no wind stirred. He sat on the rim and closed his eyes, shards clutched against his chest. Images came unbidden. A child running across a bridge lit with gold. Laughter from a face blurred by static. A storm of code falling like rain. He tried to push them away. He could not. They were not his, but they bled into him, as if the boundary between self and stranger were dissolving. The danger was not only being hunted, the danger was forgetting where he ended. When he opened his eyes, night had claimed the city. Far in the distance, across the collapsed horizon, he saw them, lights moving in a line. Lanterns, perhaps, or drones. He knew without asking. They were searching. The shards had never been his secret, not truly. Rylan slid from the fountain and pulled his hood low. There would be no sleep tonight. The dust carried his footprints, and the city itself seemed eager to betray him. He moved quickly, vanishing into alleys where the walls whispered and the air tasted of iron. Behind him, the distant glow of lanterns grew brighter. Rylan moved through the alleys like a shadow stitched to the ruins. Every echo of his boots on broken concrete was an alarm, every flicker of neon a possible witness. The shards throbbed against his chest, warm and insistent, as though each step stitched him closer to a destiny he neither sought nor understood. He rounded a corner and froze. Graffiti sprawled across the wall. A warning? Or maybe a marker. In jagged letters, someone had scrawled, "The mirror remembers." The shards pulsed at the words, a slow heartbeat, subtle but unrelenting. Memories not his own brushed at the edges of his mind. Faces, cities, fires. The shards whispered names he didn't know. He pressed his fingers to his temples, trying to shove them back into the shadows where they belonged. But the shards would not be ignored. They demanded. A sound broke the moment, a low hum vibrating through the air, mechanical yet organic. Rylan froze again. From above, cables snaked between crumbling rooftops. Lights blinked along their lengths. Drones. Too many to count, too precise to be mere scavengers. The corporations had eyes everywhere, and the shards sang to them like sirens. He ducked into a hollowed building, walls charred and ceilings half collapsed. Dust fell like slow rain from above. He crouched in the corner, breathing shallow, listening. The hum passed, faint now, but not gone. The city was alive with them, hunting for something that should never have existed. The shards pulsed in rhythm, almost conversational. Rylan traced the edges of the larger one with a finger. Light shimmered along its fractures. He whispered, "What do you want from me?" A memory struck, sudden and sharp. A girl's laugh echoing over a plaza, her hand brushing against his own. Or was it someone else's hand? His chest tightened. The shards were fragments of more than cities. They were fragments of people, souls caught in crystalline amber, stitched together by the corporations like trophies. If he carried them, he carried everything they had been. He shuddered and stood. The corridors twisted ahead, half-collapsed staircases leading upward. He could flee, vanish beneath the city's bones. But the shards, warm against his chest, demanded movement. Not away, but toward something. Toward a place they called home. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of rain from the distant skyline. Thunder rumbled like distant drums. Rylan moved faster. The city seemed to lean around him, alleys stretching and bending subtly, guiding him forward, or perhaps trapping him. He couldn't tell anymore. Ahead, a building stood taller than the others, untouched by collapse. Its windows were dark, but inside a faint glow pulsed. The shards beat faster. It was calling, or warning. He entered cautiously. The interior smelled of oil and old circuits. Shadows pooled in corners, thick and still. A staircase led down into a sublevel. The glow increased. He descended. The room below was vast. Screens lined the walls, each flickering with fragments of memory, faces, places, moments. The shards in his hands vibrated, resonating with the images. He realized he was standing in the heart of the corporation's archive, the memory hive they had been building with every fragment stolen, every city broken, every soul caught. And at the center, suspended in a prism of light, a device pulsed like a heartbeat. It was impossibly large, cables branching in every direction, some connecting to the walls, others vanishing into the floors above. He understood instinctively. The shards wanted to merge here, to complete the mosaic. But he hesitated. The shards hummed insistently. The room felt alive, whispering threats and promises all at once. He was no longer a visitor. He was a participant. The shards would not let him leave without their consent. A shadow moved across the far wall. The masked figure appeared again, stepping from darkness into the soft glow of memory. "You made it," they said, voice calm. "And now you must choose." "Choose what?" Rylan asked, clutching the shards tighter. "To merge them, to let them complete the pattern, or to destroy them and risk losing everything. The fragments will not stop, even if you die." Rylan swallowed. The shards throbbed violently. Every pulse carried voices, screams, Laughter, whispers of lives lost and unfulfilled. He realized the truth. He could not ignore them. To carry them was to carry the weight of countless others, yet to abandon them was cruelty. The shards were more than objects. They were conscience, memory, history. He stepped toward the device. Every step was agony, every heartbeat echoing with the shard's demand. The masked figure followed silently. When he reached the device, the shards lifted themselves from his hands, drawn toward the prism. Light flared, blinding, and for a heartbeat he glimpsed the mosaic they would form. A city alive, whole, radiant, but built on the bones of the forgotten. Rylan clenched his fists, forcing himself to remember who he was. "I will not let you erase them," he whispered. He lunged, shattering the shards against the prism. Light screamed. Memories collided, unstitched, tearing themselves apart. The city vision dissolved into dust. Silence fell, heavy and complete. The masked figure remained still, unreadable behind their fractured mask. Rylan fell to his knees, heart hammering, lungs burning. The shards were gone, the memories scattered, perhaps lost forever, or perhaps waiting to be reborn. Outside, rain began to fall. The city exhaled, and for the first time in years, Rylan felt nothing pressing against his chest. He rose, soaked, battered, alone, but free. For now. Rylan stepped onto the empty streets, the city feeling both alien and eerily familiar. Rain fell in steady ribbons, washing ash and dust from the ruins, and the puddles reflected the neon lights, as if the city itself were weeping. Without the shards in his hands, he felt a strange lightness, a freedom of choice. He didn't know what remained in the memory of the crystalline fragments, but he sensed that some could still awaken, though not through him. On a rooftop across the street, a figure appeared, cloaked and hidden. Eyes, or what was left of them behind the mask, watched him silently. "They've scattered," Rylan murmured, more to himself than to her. "And now?" the figure asked, descending carefully down a crumbled ladder. Her voice was human, yet trembled as if the shards had left their mark on her very presence. "Now, we move forward, without them. We are the choice, not the victims." She nodded slightly, tilting her head. "Freedom is not a gift, it is consequence." They walked together through the streets, and the city around them felt less hostile. The ruins were ruins, yet the silence after the catastrophe offered a chance for new life. Every step left a wet imprint on the cobblestones, a memory of their presence. In the distance, a siren wailed, a reminder that life continued, unaffected by shards or choices. The world carried on with its chaotic, fragile rhythm. Rylan realized that even though the shards were gone, their stories had left an imprint within him. Only one who had endured such memories could truly value life, its fragility and its power. They reached the remains of an old bridge that once connected two halves of the city. The rain had eased, and sunlight broke through the clouds, casting gentle light on the crumbling walls. "Are you afraid?" Rylan asked. "Fear is the past. Now we have only the step ahead," she replied, her gaze fixed on the horizon where light and shadow merged. They stood in silence, knowing the city would not rebuild itself overnight. Yet the memory of the shards and the choice they had made would endure, not as a burden, but as a lesson. Rylan stretched his hands toward the bridge ruins. Beside him, she tried to smile, a faint, almost invisible curve of her lips that seemed miraculous amidst the chaos. We survived, Rylan whispered. Yes, she said. And now we write the story ourselves. The rain finally ceased. The city breathed in the fresh, ash-scented air. Sunlight pierced the clouds, stretching long shadows across the ruins. They climbed onto the bridge, looking down at streets once full of noise and chaos. Now silent, they were filled with possibility. Every step, every choice in this new world was a chance for the city, a chance for them, and a chance to finally move forward.